Hello there, and welcome to the Strong by Design podcast show. Coach Chris here, sitting with my good friend, videographer, on-site pastor, father, husband, father of four.
Yes.
And friend.
Yes.
Yes. Jared Haley is our guest today on Strong by Design. But
all-encompassing.
Really, this is like a co-hosted podcast today.
See.
It's like
it's going to be a battle.
It's a dual hosting event.
Strong by Design host
battle.
Battle. Yeah.
Well, who did it the best?
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've been doing an amazing
job. Which reminds me. Hey, welcome to the Strong by Design podcast. It's so good to have you all with us. I'm here with Coach Chris today.
You're gonna hit that. You're gonna hit that camera.
That's right. Get them all.
I can't look over there.
That's right.
I've been told.
That's right.
I have two cameras. That's it. So, dude, great. This conversation's a long time coming. It's just something that sparked interest in me months ago, something I knew I wanted to talk about. I wasn't sure how, and I think subconsciously I processed it for a little while.
Yeah.
And we kept pushing this recording date out because we had so many other podcasts to do.
Podcasts, hurricanes
to beat. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then so finally it just was like, okay, it's time now. I think I know. And I put some notes, and then you added to my notes and beefed them up and made them even better. So I think we have some really good talking points here. So
I just drew squigglies.
You just you made it look impressive from afar, but it really wasn't much there.
Changed the font from 10 to 13.
Yeah, you did. There's tricks.
That's right.
There's tricks. That was one of them. So thanks again for making time today, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Would you do us a favor as a man of God?
Sure.
Would you pray a blessing over
Absolutely.
Our words today?
Yeah. Father God, thank you so much for Chris and for the Strong by Design podcast and Father, I just ask that you would bless our conversation today, that as Chris and I are talking, that Spirit, you'd be leading our conversation, that we would use our notes and our prep and things along those lines, but Father, we'd be willing just to go where you want us to go with this conversation. I pray that it would be beneficial to those who listen, that as people are listening to this podcast right now, that Father, you would be with them, that you would be taking our words out of our mouths and speaking truth into the lives of the listener. And so I pray that it would draw us to action, it would draw us to have practical application, and that, Father, we would all be lifted up by it. So thank you so much. Thank you for this time. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. Appreciate
You're welcome.
That. So you know what? Before I get to the topic, I want to say thank you so much to our return listeners. Always so encouraged by the growth of the show in our fifth season, and just collecting more downloads than ever before and reaching more people than ever, and that's just always feels good, right? That you're being heard. I mean, whether you're being heard by hundreds or thousands of people, it's still has relevance, but to see the growth and to see those numbers climb as you kind of gain momentum, it absolutely feels, it just feels good that you're able to share some truth and, pardon me, some inspiration, some education, because we kind of go off in all these directions. So for you return listeners, we just love you and thank you for coming back to listen to more powerful conversations. And if you're new to the show, after you listen to this one, start going backwards and listening to all of our past episodes. We have so many great ones, and you could just kind of scroll through and pick out the ones that are the most appealing to you, depending on where you're at. Everybody's in different places, like mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. So it's fun to kind of go off in all of those. And once you've collected a lot of those conversations, it's like it's kind of never ending for people. I'm sure there's people that have listened to us 10, 20, 40 times. We have over 250 episodes, so there's a lot there for people to consume. So be sure to share this conversation, because I know this will hit home on some level with you. Share it with a friend or family member at the end of this conversation, or right now if you're already loving it and you're interested in this topic, because this is a really good one. So what is what is this conversation today? What do I mean by virtual and virtuous? And really what stirred in me, something that hit me several months ago, was my own sense of living through a device, or living through what I wanted, the lens I wanted people to see, versus what's actually going on, right? And
the digital facade.
Yeah. And I think it's that particular particular type of subject is something that I think people are aware of on some level, but I think there's a lot of people that don't really give it much thought or reflection. It's like, are we just living to show people like how amazing our life is, or are we just living true for ourselves, for our family, for our community, and whatever is projected out there is projected out there without, I think people get stuck caring too much about what other people are seeing, and the perception and the comparison and all of these things. So we're going to go off in different directions with the conversation, but that's really kind of what was stirring in me was, how we just are living in a world that's very different today than it was when I was younger, right? I mean, everybody can put their stuff out there, and they can tweak it and modify it and alter it for it to look a certain way. And do you have any kind of thoughts about that before we kind of really dive into defining like this?
Well,
these
lots
words?
Of thoughts.
I know you do.
I have lots of thoughts. Yeah, I mean, just as you were talking, I wish I could pull up the scripture off the top of my head, but basically, I believe it's Paul that's writing and says, in the end, when the end is coming near, people will be, and he kind of lists off all of these things. And one of those things that sticks out to me is people will be lovers of themselves.
Yeah.
And yes, people are naturally selfish, but in this digital age, it's in this virtual age, we have a way to almost treat ourselves or our virtual presence almost like a new God that didn't exist before, and so I'm a lover of myself so much that I'm creating this virtual person that I want people to see, and I want, then my value becomes based on, how much other people are commenting on what I say, or, liking it or sharing it or whatever it might be, right? And that's a really easy, trap to get into. And I know lots of people have come out and said those things, but it's one thing to say it. It's another thing to do something about it. And so I think that'll be a little bit more of what we talk about today is what does it look like to live virtuously as opposed to just virtually. But if you want to, I think defining it is good.
It is. And obviously with a certain amount of celebrity and status and power and fame, I think you can really get caught up, right? And these are the people that end up in a lot of ways really crashing down at some point.
Sure.
Right? Because you see these people that attain unbelievable levels of celebrity and status and fame and notoriety and all these things that, us, nobodies, so to speak, look to and admire and go, wow, I wish, if that were me, all of these things. But are these people really genuinely in touch with reality or with what matters? Right.
Yeah. And I mean, with the virtual world now, I mean, it's gone beyond just like, people in the movies or musicians, but now we have the term influencer, right? The social media influencer, and, I want to be the next big influencer. It's kind of what everybody wants, and the reality of that as well, is probably not all what it's cracked up to be.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. There's parts of me that want that.
Sure.
Right? I think all of us.
I think our self-ego, we find value, especially in our temperaments. I think we find value in people accepting us and people thinking that we're awesome.
Relevance, right? Like, ooh, this many people, thousands of people like that, hundreds, thousands of people commented. I must be something important. So virtue is a behavior showing high moral standards. Okay, that's virtue, or being virtuous. Virtual, okay, existing, seen, or happening online or on a computer screen rather than in person or in the physical world. Okay, so one is, really centered around your deep convictions, maybe, about how to live a life, and, morally, ethically, biblically, integrity, which is one of our core values, right? And we'll get there a little bit more later on. Virtual is really just this other type of existence, right? It's an online, it's a technological, reality,
right?
Versus what's true and what's actual.
Yeah, and I think that what we'll probably get into today is, it's not a one or the other, right?
Correct.
We're going to get into what does it look like to be virtuous and virtual, as opposed to virtuous or virtual.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, because if we didn't have the virtual option, our business wouldn't exist.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
Criticalbench.com would not be a thing, as far as what it is right now. We are a fully online business, fully, and we have been for almost 25 years. And so, yes, we have a great need.
Since dial-up?
Since dial-up,
wow.
bro. Since all those weird noises.
That's right. That's right. It's good.
Yeah, all that stuff.
It's good.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Late 90s. So let's talk about how much time that we're spending online, plugged in with these social channels versus these the kind of the difference and the meaning behind this versus these face-to-face relationships doing this, what you and I are doing right now, versus the text back and forth. And
I always thought it was like
commenting.
an oxymoron that we have these conversations about not being on social media, and then we have this conversation that we're posting out to social media for people to listen to. I don't know. I just thought that was kind of funny.
It is,
but that's the way it works.
It is. It's a genuine, real conversation, though. I guess, right?
And it's a little different than like sitting on Facebook, scrolling through, or Instagram, or whatever.
Right.
It's putting something on in your car to listen to as you're driving is you kind of like listening to the radio as opposed to being stuck inside, a virtual space. But anyway, I always thought that was kind of funny.
No, that
or
it
people
is.
go on these, I just was listening to Christiana, my wife, the other day, was listening to someone talking about how social media like ruins your life. But she's on Instagram, like trying to influence people on Instagram, telling them to get off Instagram because it's ruining their life. And I'm like, I'm trying to figure out how that all goes together. It's like if you're successful in getting your message out, you're actually being contradictory to what you're trying to get people to do. So
it's a bit of a what would that be considered? I guess a bit of a conundrum. Would you say
it is a conundrum?
It's like you kind of.
Although I don't know how you get your message out without doing that stuff
know,
either.
But the two are intertwined, as you said. It's like you don't have to have one and not the other. You can have both.
Right.
But where's your heart? Where's the truth? Where's your convictions? Where are you ethically and morally? Right. And all of these things. So you had written. What'd you write? You have, when you look at like an Apple product.
Oh yeah.
You have all the screen time built features built into track where you're spending your virtual time.
So
and I'm sure we all kind of know that.
I don't know about PCs. You can talk about PCs since you're a PC guy and I'm an Apple guy.
I'm both guy, though.
You're both guy. So on that's true. On all of your Apple products, there's a feature called Screen Time. You can turn it on, and then you can go and see, and it tracks what apps are you on, where are you spending your time, how much time. You can set limits, so that it'll automatically like kick you off. Different, hey, I only want to be on social media stuff an hour a day. I'm not disciplined enough to kick myself off, so you set a limit up so it'll kick you off. It just quits connecting to the internet for you for that particular app.
Yep.
Obviously, if you're addicted to it, you can find ways around it, or you go and you turn it off or whatever. But for someone that, that's what they're looking to do, there are those options. And I know sometimes, like Christiana and I will go and just look at, hey, how long are we staying, on these different platforms, or how much time in our week are we wasting, and it's not, it's like anything else, right? Like, it's not bad in and of itself, but when you overindulge, it's bad, right? Like, and that's true with anything. If you, even water, you drink too much water, you drown yourself, like there is such thing as too much of a good thing and definitely too much of a bad thing. And it's finding that healthy balance, that healthy line of, what is, where are my priorities, and how much time am I going to invest to that digital space? And when I'm not in that digital space, I think this is a good tell as well, is, do you find it hard to not reach for the phone, or do you find it hard to find other things to do? Like, sometimes you say, hey, I'm not gonna be on my phone near as much, and so you decide that you're gonna put it away, and then you're just sitting there like, I don't know what to do with myself. I don't know what to do with my time. Like, that's a good tell.
It's an impulse.
You're probably
you're reaching for
not in a
thing.
Good space if you can't figure out something else to do with your life that isn't digital.
Where I notice it the most is in the car. And
Okay.
some people, that's like the worst place to look at your phone. It's true. I've gotten better about looking at it while driving. It's more, and I can continue to do better. I'm not perfect in that regard. I'll try and handle an email or a text while, it's like so stupid. And I know in the moment, I'm like, what are you doing? I get that's the God, like, dude, put the phone down. Just drive your car, please. But
Especially in Florida,
right? As soon as I get to a stop sign, what's my first thing? My first thing is like reach to the cup holder and pick my phone back up. I might as well kill this minute doing something. And there's some times where I do it and I'm like, dude, just listen to the music, or it's okay. You don't need it right now. Like, take a second,
Yeah. So, Chris, so if it's really something that you don't want to do,
right? But Paul says, right? Why do I continue to do the things I don't want to do?
So then how do you put that boundary on yourself?
Yeah.
Like, what is, and this is a real question, like, what is...
I could put something on the phone, right? If you're driving.
You could put something on the phone. You could put your phone in your trunk.
Yeah, you could do that.
Because if someone calls, you can still push your button and answer the phone call.
That's a good point.
So it's not like but then you almost have to take the temptation away, right? Scripture talks about if you sit down with temptation, you can only, I always use the button analogy, right? You walk into a room and it has a button in the middle of the room that says do not push. Like, the longer you're in that room, the more you want to push that button.
Darn right.
And so the longer you stare at it, the harder it is to resist. So the best way to not push the button is to get yourself out of the room, right? So if you know that you're not disciplined enough to do it, that's the right thing to do, then you need to set up, those boundaries that make it impossible for you to even be in the room with it.
That's right.
That's just one example.
It's a good one. I like it.
And it doesn't, if it's not, I don't know, put it wherever you need to put it that you can't have access while you're driving.
Listen, the only thing I would need while driving is if there was something going on, I needed to speak to my wife or you guys at the office while I'm driving home. Hey, you forgot this, or hey, emergency situation, And
I'm almost 100% sure that your car has the ability to do all of that without having to have the phone in your hand.
That's 100% right. 100% right. If I could just figure out what button I need to press to answer the phone.
Yes.
Do you know, because I'm in a new lease, right? A new car. I don't know how to answer the phone yet.
Yeah.
This has happened
we'll have to go do some tests. I'll give you some calls.
Can we do that today,
absolutely.
actually?
Yeah.
After we record.
Yeah.
so I know what the heck is going on.
Yeah.
The phone has rung 3 times, and I hit a couple buttons. And I'm like, so I just answer it with my phone. I'm like, I don't, honey, I'm trying. I don't know, like, sorry it took so long for me to answer. I'm pressing buttons that aren't working. So anyway,
and then you hang up on them.
Why'd they make it so darn complicated? It should be easy. Although, I can be a bit of a dodo brain, I guess, with these things.
It took me a while with my car too. You figure it out, and then I know where that button's at now. So
yeah. It's, some of us learn a little quicker than others when it comes to technology.
Listen, when I get a new car, this drives my wife crazy. Actually, I'll sit in my car for like hours,
trying to
making sure. Okay, my Bluetooth is connecting, and how do I make sure I figure out how to do everything so that then I know. But it's like any kind of new. It's like getting a new toy, right? You want to play with it.
There's nothing wrong with that, and I'm getting there. I've had the car now almost 2 weeks, so I'm getting there. And there's probably things I'll never use, but there's things that I would like to use. I don't know how to do yet, right? So here we go. There's virtual. There you go. Virtual living in my car,
and virtuous,
and being virtuous.
Right.
No, I want to be more virtuous in my car by only speaking and not hands on a phone, but I can talk and drive. I can do that pretty well. So we were talking obviously about, this living your life on social media, this facade that we've created. I think we've kind of touched on it enough to the point where it's what do we want other people, and we've all felt this, right? We've all scrolled and seen our friends post or something and been like, I know they're not this happy, right? As happy as they would like everyone to believe. Like I was just talking to so and so yesterday. They're miserable, but here are the pictures of them living their best life, and it almost becomes like the people that you know best, and you see what they're putting out there. It's like this is like a load of baloney. Have you had those feelings or thoughts before when looking at stuff? Maybe
sure.
I mean, and obviously it's almost impossible for us to look at our own life and be like, this isn't really our life, but I'm going to put it out there and project it. But we've certainly noticed it when we've seen it in other people. So,
yes, absolutely. I think that happens. The other thing that I think is interesting is, and I don't know if this is an individual thing or if this is more of like a male tendency compared to a female tendency. But Christiona's like really big and like actually have like commenting on everybody's stuff. She loves to comment on people's stuff. I don't. Like I'll tell her, like if I'm scrolling through something, I'm like, that's funny or whatever. And she's like, why don't you comment on there? And I'm like, I don't really want to. Like, I don't care to, I think that she's obviously posting a whole lot more than I am as well. And so I just wonder if some of that is temperament or if some of that is, male, female. I'm curious that like my dad, he doesn't have his own Facebook, but he uses my mom's Facebook so that he can scroll and stuff, but it doesn't actually have to, interact with anybody.
Right.
Which is just, that in and of itself is interesting. It's almost like socially okay digital stalking, right? Like we've created this cultural acceptance of it's okay to go really see how other people are doing. We don't actually know, based on your point, if that is how they're actually doing. But it's like that's our excuse, right? That's our excuse. Oh, well, I want to go on and I just want to see how so-and-so's vacation was, and then lo and behold, we're like, how come I don't ever get to go on a vacation? You know what I mean? And it's all, we don't know. There's so much missing information that we don't know behind the stories, good or bad.
That's right.
That, I think it started out just like anything starts out good. Like it was great to be able to see, family that had moved away and be able to, watch kids grow up and see what they're doing. But then you can kind of take that to the next level where it becomes a little bit consuming, and maybe even, socially okay, but still stockish of stalking other people. And it just leads you down a path that I think is ultimately unhealthy.
Yeah, I think there's an attachment that people will form to it. It's almost like it's like another relationship that they have. They have a relationship with this platform. Them and Instagram are buddies. They and Facebook are really good friends, and they want to. They just feel like if I don't get this out there, if I don't tell everybody, express how I'm feeling, put up these pictures on a daily, add to my stories, all this stuff, then people, they won't know. And then what happened? Like, I have to tell Facebook so Facebook can tell everyone else. It's like the friend that's the good gossiper. It's like, I got to tell someone, Nancy, because Nancy will just tell everybody.
It really is kind of a form of digital gossip, isn't it?
It totally is.
Yeah.
Absolutely do.
Never thought of it that way. That got me
it's
thinking.
kind of a weird thing, right? But I have, and so in my life, I'll say, okay, on average, what am I posting? I probably post. Certainly, I'm tagged in things that end up in my feed, right?
I tag you every day.
You tagging me all the time.
Here's Chris's mood
it's
today.
work-related stuff, though, a lot. But no, personal stuff. So me, like...
Chris is bitter today.
Chris is having a bad day.
At Coach Chris Wilson.
It really smelled awful after his workout. But like, if we do a family trip, or if I do something really fun, an excursion of some kind, generally something like that will get posted or shared.
And what's the motivation behind that?
What is the motivation? Sometimes it's like that's an occasion where we took a lot of good pictures. So I'm really proud of the family pictures or how cute the kids are, showing the extended family. All my wife's family's in Kansas. The only time they really get to see the kids, other than once a year in person, is through Facebook or Instagram. I will share stuff that way.
I was talking to my kids about film the other day, by the way.
About film?
Having to take pictures and then go and get it developed.
Oh my God. And not knowing what
you're getting.
Yeah.
And then
Eyes
having
closed,
to
red
mail
eye.
those pictures so that grandma and grandpa can see them.
That's exactly what it used to get, the big thick envelope through the mail. You're like, I know what's in here.
Yeah. Don't worry, we printed duplicates.
Don't worry, we got the duplicates.
Sorry.
You can keep all
Continue.
those. No, but it's and then you get the people that it's a day, like I said, a daily or like multiple times a day. Their thoughts, their feelings, they're just putting up expressions and this happened to me. Little quibs about on the way to work today. It's like, oh my gosh, like.
The selfies.
Yeah, the selfies, the look at me, and it's almost to the point where it's a little bit disturbing. Or I almost feel a little bit maybe sorry or sad for the person that they need to put their stuff out there so much. All the little itty-bitty things that...
what
this
I think
is everyday normal stuff that you're putting out there.
Sure. And their motivation, too, I think, is somewhat to get to that influencer status that they want. They're trying to validate themselves, not just on how they look or in that moment, but they want people to be coming to them. But I think what's really sad is that you see there's enough time has gone by now in the influencer world that you're seeing these influencers who 5-10 years have gone by, and now their lives behind the scenes are coming out that they're falling apart. So there's this one couple that Christiana used to watch, I don't know, 5 years ago, that it was a couple that they did just funny bits together, and they were just hilarious.
Yeah.
And lots of people started following them. Well, now in recent years, they're divorced, and they're both still posting though, their side of the story.
Oh my
and
goodness.
it's like nothing about this is good. It's
right. Some stuff is supposed to be private, right?
Right.
And that's okay.
Yeah, and they're trying to. It's like they're trying to sway the people they're influencing why their side of the story. Why it's like it's worse than, maybe not worse, but it's like splitting the kids up, right? Like who gets what kid, and you're splitting up your audience, and which I don't know. Just what a crazy world we live in that's even a thing.
That's even a thing. And these are people that no one would have known anything about if you go back 10 years or 12 years. They were just a regular couple that maybe had some funny, humorous interactions and stuff. My wife and I have funny, humorous interactions all the time. Usually it's her picking on me and everyone laughing.
Yeah, and Christiana does that to me as well.
Yes, at the benefit of the kids all think it's great, right? When mommy picks on daddy, and then we're just kicking our can down the road.
That's right.
But I do a lot of dumb stuff. So it's I feel like, you know what? If it wasn't for me look at all the laughs you would be robbed
That's
of.
right. That's right.
Right?
Your life would be boring.
Your life would be boring if I wasn't
That's
around.
right.
You
That's
know?
right. Yeah.
So, anywho.
So if I do something that really annoys my wife, my go-to line is, "You'd miss it if I was gone."
That's right. You miss it if I was gone.
She's like, "Shut up."
Shut up. My other thing that I always say, because my wife cannot help herself when we drive, and generally if we're in the car together driving, I'm the one driving. Generally, not all the time. Sometimes I just want her to drive so I can just like veg out. And seriously, when she drives, I'm just like chill. I don't care. Like, you're driving.
Yeah.
If I'm driving, she's the co-pilot.
Yes.
Oh, are you gonna go? Brakes.
Yeah.
There's a spot.
Have you seen that Tim
Mike
Hawkins
and I
bit?
talk about this all the time. What's that?
Tim Hawkins.
I know that name.
He's a comedian.
Okay.
And
is he a Christian comedian?
He's a Christian comedian.
I know, that's why I know. Okay.
But he's always like, "I don't know how I ever got anywhere without my little helper."
That's exactly what I say to my wife.
Yeah.
I say, honey, you realize we met when I was 26, right? I'm 40. We've been together 20 years. I drove a car for 10 years before I even knew you. I don't know how I did it.
Yeah.
Right. Like how would it, but thank God you're in the car, you know, like, phew, you know, and sometimes I even go to work and you're not in the car to help me get to the office. You know, it's like, I got it. Like, it's okay. And how about this? If I don't park in your preferred parking spot for the grocery store, I'll pick my own.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to be all right.
Yeah, we're binge watching Home Improvement.
It's a good show.
It's on Hulu again. And so we started watching it. And there's a good episode where Jill's going back to work. And so so Tim has to take care of the house and things.
Oh, boy.
And he doesn't do it the way that she wants it. And, you know, at the end, he's like, "Look, everyone came home. They were all safe. We got it done, you know." But it's just funny. Like, obviously, there's something there that a comedian is making fun of it, you know. But you know, it's.
Listen, it's like, I know my mom was the same way.
Yep.
They can't help themselves.
Sure. Well, and they're care.
Just trying to be helpful because they care so much.
And here's the reality. You and I do a lot of stupid things.
Yes. Because we're boys.
Because we're boys. And I am grateful for my wife to be able to see the big picture that I can't see.
Yeah.
And to help keep me going into a direction, you know, pulling me back to the ground a little bit when I'm floating out here in the clouds. So I love that about marriage, that it really helps bring that balance, you know, to where she helps me stay a little bit more grounded, and I help her sometimes be a little bit more loose and adaptable.
That's right.
And we get to find that middle ground
There's
together.
no doubt about it. I'm so grateful all the time for my wife, all the amazing things that she brings, and you know, it's like you go together like Velcro, you know, and you're.
I didn't know what that was.
This is Velcro.
Okay,
this is me doing Velcro.
You're like, you know, I just don't know why when my wife is around. You know, no, this is Velcro.
This is a really lousy.
I feel like this is a better, like.
That's a better Velcro.
This is Velcro. You know,
especially if you.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, like that. So yeah.
Anyway, back to Virtual and Virtuous.
Maybe we should add the word Velcro to the title too.
That's
it's another V word. But I wanted there's a bit of scripture that I want to just touch on real quick that's more relevant or pertinent to this. Are the fake relationships and the community that we are establishing in this online space, the dating apps, the pornography and stuff that people are really getting locked into, and I think addicted to. That's the sexual stuff is really, I think, where people start going down that a path that's really hard to come back from, and our whole culture is kind of leaning that direction right now. What do you want to say about that part?
Absolutely. I think the thing that bugs me more than the fact that people are going to have vices. People are going to struggle with things. We're sinful people. That's the reality. Yeah. The thing that bothers me is when people don't make that connection with other bad things that are happening in the world. And, you know, they're like, oh.
They think it's an island of.
Right. Well, you know, like, obviously we don't like the pedophile, right? And we get mad at the pedophile. But what you're not making the connection to is all of this online stuff. They didn't just one day wake up and I'm a pedophile. Like, it's a slow road to get there.
That's right.
And there's so much of this other stuff that people are okay with. They're not okay with you getting there, but I'm fine with all of this stuff here.
Totally.
And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
It starts here.
It does.
We have to nip it in the bud so it doesn't get there.
Yep.
But people are like, no, it's cool. You know,
it's like socially acceptable to be into pornography.
Deviating from, the original design, and going to this counterfeit.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, it's okay. It's not a big deal. It is a big deal because one thing leads to another. And before you know it, you have some guy that thinks he can do whatever he wants because the digital space has led him to believe that.
That's right. I am not perfect by any means. I, like most men, definitely looked at stuff that I shouldn't have for many years. And then once the age came that we're in now, back in like 2008, 09, 2010, when things really kind of took on a whole different, whereas in your hand now, I can access and plug into anything and look at anything I want. And that wasn't good. For a period of years. And then just from conversations and some reflection and stuff, I made a choice several years ago. I'm not gonna go there. There's certain places that I just won't allow myself to go. Not to say I won't get lustful, like looking at a pretty woman or something on social, on Instagram or Facebook or something, and be like, ooh. But I stop it and nip it in the bud, and I try to I always have that little voice like, dude, why? And then okay, let me pitch that. Let me get away from that. It's kind of like I'm entering the fringe of the the zone you don't want to go into.
It's important for us to remember too that God doesn't ask us to see how close to the line we can get.
Yes.
Right? Like, that's not the goal. The goal isn't to say, people will say, well, is this a sin or is this not a sin? And I'm like, the goal is not to see how close you can get before you cross over. The goal is to recognize it and run in the opposite direction.
That's right. There's a fire in that house, so maybe don't go in it.
Maybe don't go look in the window, because it could blow up on your face, but
it's true, man.
People don't think that way.
I know. They don't, and I think they have a lot of the people that we
what can I get away with without getting into too much trouble?
That's right. And it's private. I'm not hurting anybody, right? If I'm not hurting anybody, it can't be bad. But ultimately you are, because you're supporting an industry or you're supporting stuff going on that is not a good thing, because so the people involved.
There's a lot of people that are coming out the other end of it now that are just completely ruined.
Yes.
They got almost tricked into it, thinking that it, whatever thing that they tell you going into the industry, and then you get kicked out the other end, just a broken mess.
Absolutely right.
And all of its ties to sex trafficking and all kinds of different stuff.
And we've had those conversations on this podcast. If you go way back, I forget what episode it was, but we've talked about that, and I'm sure we will again in the future. One of these days we get Tim Tebow on. He can talk about all the amazing work that he's doing. But yeah, it's a dangerous road. And I think people will start to allow themselves to go down it on social media and be connected to things. And then it will lead off into other things that are far more dangerous, far more disturbing. Yes. And it's like the entry, the gateway drug or something, if you will.
And it's a slippery slope, right? Yeah. I mean, deception is a slippery slope. It is, but it's also gradual.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen in a moment,
No, it doesn't.
It starts with little compromises, okay, well, this isn't bad. I'll just, that's okay. And then you get comfortable there. Okay, one more little step. Okay, now I'm comfortable. Okay, one more little step. And before you know it, you're walking through crap and you don't even know how you got there.
Yep. Yeah, well, what's good is the community and the culture that we've created here and in our communities and stuff. I think people see our boldness to talk about these things openly and share it, a kind of a taboo topic, and to take a stance, a hard stance on it. And people find that like refreshing too. It's like, oh, there's a guy that's not going to do that stuff or stand for that stuff. I'm not saying I'm perfect and that I didn't used to. I did. I just made a choice not to do it anymore. And you learn. We live and we learn. We learn from our mistakes and we grow. Right. I want to read something from Ephesians that I thought was really. And there's so many places in the Bible we could go based on this conversation.
Sure.
But this is one that stood out to me because I was actually in this book, and so this is Ephesians 4:18 and 19. They are darkened in their understanding and separated from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them due to the hardening of their hearts. Having lost all sensitivity, they have given themselves over to sensuality so as to indulge in every kind of impurity with a continual lust for more. And I mean, this is written over 2,000 years ago. That could be somebody writing an article today about. Listen, the way we are and operate as human beings is not very different from what it once was. We just have different opportunities and different ways to connect and to see the world and experience things, right? But as far as like our lusts and desires and pleasures and stuff, that's the same now as it always was.
And at the root of that is really a sense of community and a sense of feeling valued, needed, and accepted. All of those things which you should find in a healthy community, right? If I'm in a healthy community, I'm going to know that I'm valued in that space. I'm going to know that I'm accepted in that space. I'm going to know that I have purpose in that space. But what has happened in the digital world is that we get this false sense of community, right? Like you have Facebook. It's a false sense of community. It's not grounded in reality. It's grounded in a perverted, maybe not even perverted, but a diluted form of reality, right? Because people are all putting on their best faces.
That's right.
And so you get sucked into these things because you're seeking that validation and you're seeking that community, and really that shouldn't be found in a digital space. It should be found with other human beings. And what the enemy really wants to do is to isolate you, right? He wants you to be isolated away from everybody else, because once you're alone, like he can really start hammering in, because you don't have other people saying, no, that's not true. That's not true. He can start feeding you any lie that he wants to feed you, and you're alone in your room and you're digital. Yeah, sorry, we're playing a little footsie. Like that's a big goal of his, is to get you to be isolated and on your own. Pornography does that. Being on your phone all the time. You don't realize it, but even in when we're sitting around as a family, if I'm on my phone, I don't hear the things going on around me anymore.
That's right.
I'm just sucked into that digital space. Our kids, if they're watching TV, you're like screaming at them just to get them to hear you, because they're so locked in on that screen they can't hear anything. And so it's a way to isolate you from reality, to be able to influence you to really ultimately hate yourself, and hate those around you, which is completely the opposite of why you were designed.